Good morning. Welcome to day 2 of HLF. Cinema shapes how we see the world and who gets to be seen. Today's panel, Reversing the Lens, Women Making Cinema, focuses on women filmmakers whose work has expanded the language of film, storytelling, and representation across different formats and over decades. Our panelists today, we are pleased and honored to be joined by Paromita Vohra, filmmaker and writer, whose work spans documentaries, digital media, art installations, and television. Her films include Unlimited Girls, Q2P, Loving Jihad, Where's Chandra, Morality TV, Partners in Crime, and Working Girls. She is also the founder of Agents of Ishq, a pioneering digital platform on sex, love, and desire, and has been writing columns, a weekly column for Sunday Midday for over 15 years. Also with us, Tanuja Chandra, filmmaker and writer, whose work spans television, mainstream cinema, independent films, documentaries, and short fiction. She has co-written award-winning films such as Zakham, Tamanna, and Dil To Pagal Hai, and directed films like Dushman, Sangharsh, Sur, and Kareeb Kareeb Single, as well as short films and documentaries. Her documentary series, Wedding.com, won multiple awards in 2024. This conversation will be moderated by Sangeetha Devi Dundoo, deputy editor with The Hindu, who has over 2 decades of experience in features, journalism, with a strong focus on film criticism. Over to you, Sangeetha.
Thank you. Am I audible to everyone here? Good morning, and thank you so much for making the time and effort to come here on a Sunday morning. I can see a few familiar faces among the audience, movie buffs, artists. Welcome. So I'm throwing the floor open and we won't waste time. We'll get into the questions. Tanuja, I'll begin with you. Your films, Auntie Sudha, Auntie Radha, which you'll be screening later today, and Wedding.com, the docu-series that you did for Amazon Prime, are in the non-fiction category. At what point in your career did you feel the gradual shift and interest towards non-fiction and not feature films?
It was actually not gradual. I started out as a journalist. So I was always interested in real stories. My main influence and inspiration for my movies is real life, actually. I keep telling my co-writers, or sometimes you have a writer's room for series, that always lean on the real stories and the real incidents. Think about what happened to X and Y, and as opposed to other shows, for example. I often hear, how about, as in this show, I was like, what about real life? Real life is the most surprising, the most shocking, the most beautiful. So I had always loved real stories, and it's just that one gets pulled into this whole world of Bollywood, and you make somewhat mainstream cinema. But even my first film was female-led, and so that has been an abiding love of mine throughout. But then when one actually, I suppose, gets time and reclaims that love is when, my 2 old aunts, very old and aged, and I'm so thankful that I made this film because they've now passed away, and I wouldn't have been able to, for me, it's an archive of a time that is disappearing. So, and Wedding.com, I consider myself very, pretty well informed about what's happening. I was shocked by by how much matrimonial fraud there is going on in India online. So when I was approached for that, I jumped at it and I said, yes, I would love to do this. Like I said, that's where my heart lies. In fiction, you can give it a happy ending, I guess, which is not often there in real life. So I do enjoy both, but documentary is long and not so appreciated in our country as it must be. But it's a great format. And I think it teaches me much more than I give it, you know.
Paromita, since the 90s, as a journalism student, you began exploring documentaries. At that point of time, there was a notion that documentaries are mostly boring and grim. But then anyone who's seen your work or read your writings would know that there's an undercurrent of humor, right? Did this sense of style emerge very organically?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's true that people had that perception about documentaries. I mean, I wasn't a journalism student. I studied mass communications. And, you know, mass communications was a new kind of course when I studied it. And I think the great benefit of it was that if you were a little unsure about what you wanted to do, which I definitely was, or clueless is a better word, then it gave you a kind of broad spectrum of media and you tried to do different things and learn from it. And I think I discovered documentary as a form actually in college. I was very lucky because it was the first year that the Bombay Documentary Film Festival happened, and we were given a week off from college to attend, and I attended 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. every day. And I think what I saw was that not only from other countries, but within India too, there was actually a range of documentary practices. And I think what the documentary as a form offered is absolute freedom. Really, a documentary can be anything. Yeah. It can look any way. It can have fiction in it, like my films have songs in them, animation in them. And most of all, I think that the best documentaries have a kind of personal creative voice. So if you are so lucky as to be thrown into a very poorly but intensively curated film festival, and you are that kind of young person who doesn't fit in anywhere, and so you find your place. I thought documentary was a place, and I'm saying this retrospectively, you know, when you're 20, you don't have that. We were not so confident and well articulated as people are today. So it was more that I felt it was a place where I would not be overly scrutinized, where I could explore both my interest in my creative self and my political self. And I think it's a very wonderful way to engage with your own society, actually. So, yeah, and as for the, you know, I think also because though I started my working life working with one of the most iconic filmmakers, Anand Patwardhan, whose style of filmmaking has strongly influenced what people think a documentary ought to be. And I mean, I think Anand is a very a great exponent of his own form, but very often when other people emulate the form, it becomes a kind of slightly desiccated version, and that you must take on a kind of political position, and to be political means to do a set repertoire of things.
But it becomes an imitation in the process.
It's imitation, and also becomes a kind of, what can I say, a formula when other people use it. And that formula is not only an artistic formula, but it becomes a political formula. And I think the great thing about politics is in the doing and in the discovery. It cannot be a pre-existing thing that, oh, already we know what politics and being political is, and you just tick those boxes. Actually, that's the opposite of doing anything political. So this, the documentary offers you a means of going into the world, and in your encounter with different people, in the thing that you do as you encounter different people, actually is the political. And I think that is why the form of documentary is so much or as much important as what you are talking about. How you talk about it is maybe more important for me. And I think because if you think that way and you don't think of documentary as a not artistic medium, I never thought that way about it. So if you think about it as an artistic and creative medium, then who you are will enter it, and I am funny, I think, or I like conviviality. It's more than humor. I think that the films are convivial, and I love people. I love people who have an interesting turn of phrase, who have a kind of sense of swag and style. I love people who are thinking a lot and who share their conceptual understanding of their lives and the world. So I'm attracted to those people, and so somehow we find each other. when I'm making the film, and the film gets made not only out of my personality but their personality, right? Like I think the film is also a co-creation between the director and the subject. So yeah, I think that is why it is organically who you are, and also at another level a means of discovering who you are, as all art is. You know? As you keep doing it, you're also thinking, what is interesting to me? Why am I interested in this? It's as much about knowing yourself, and then slowly from that, developing an awareness of your own form. And the more you develop that awareness, also you develop a kind of self-reflexivity till it starts. I think it's like singing. Making documentaries is like singing, so that the more you do riyaz of it, the more it becomes something that you do almost at a spiritual level in a certain way. I think that.
You know, Tanuja, Auntie Sudha, Auntie Radha was the first documentary that you worked upon, right? And you also stated that at that time, you know, the zest for life, even though there are questions of life and death, you know, the zest for life came from your aunts themselves. Can you talk about what it meant to be in their private space, just being invisible and documenting their day-to-day lives?
To be honest, I planned to be invisible, but I ended up not being because I mean, they would only talk to me. So I decided that instead of being behind the camera, I'll just, because I'm related to them, I'm their niece, and I've had a very beautiful childhood with them, where they gave me a lot of affection and love. So I was a part of the documentary. And in fact, I had started out because my general bent is towards more serious subjects. So I started out thinking that this will be a serious film about aging and dying. And my editor said, "Arey, they are so funny, why the hell are you insisting on making this a serious film?" And so he and I fought a lot, but he insisted on making it more enjoyable, cute, joyful, and it ended up, like she said, that being a funny film, you know, and I'm really happy about that. So I was very comfortable talking to them, and it's all just series of conversations, and I followed them. They dictated the story more than I decided. I didn't ask them to do anything. They actually were not even aware that there were cameras. There were 2 cameras, and we kept moving very silently around them in the village where they live. And actually the story became a story for me because my mother and father used to vacation there every summer. And I used to call them कि mom, what are you doing? बस खाट पे लेटे हुए हैं, धूप में लेटे हुए हैं, मिठाई खा रहे हैं. So you know, this is, in fact, my aunts, once they were finished with all their family obligations, is when they've lived the last few very restful, beautiful, independent years of their lives, you know. It was, I asked her, I said, is this the best time of your life? She said it is. So I thought that was really beautiful. And they had 2 women, had 5 people as help. And so that was their family, you know. And to me, then it became a story because it was a family that's not necessarily like the usual family. And yet, they all look out for each other. If the whole world could just be this way and just get along, despite the big thing and the gossiping, and even the help would say that, oh, these 2, they trouble us too much. But they love them, you know. So that's the best we can all do in this life, where we can just learn to care for one another, you know. So I think that for me it's been, my bua said to me that tumne humko amar kar diya. But I feel they have done that for me, because my name will be directed by, will always be there, and I continue to learn from it. It's a film that has brought me here to this festival. They continue to do so much for me, and I think this country is bursting at the seams with stories. With stories everywhere I look, there's a story, and I'm thinking, this should be a documentary, this should be I don't know why people aren't crazy about making documentaries in India. They should be. It's always Bollywood, you know, I don't know why. And here, of course, you know, your film industry and South film industry and Kolkata, the Bengali film industry and the Punjabi film industry. What about the documentaries? They would be amazing, you know. But yeah, it's not such a loved form.
I'm going to borrow that line that you said, that the country is bursting with stories. I mean, talk about the film that you made, Working Girls. You know, it took you about a year and a half to make that film. It was born from the research by the King's College, the laws of social reproduction, and it took you into very uncharted territories that you were not familiar with before. You've spoken to women who are engaged in the Karagatam dance in Madurai, Adal Padal dance, and then the Asha workers in Trivandrum, and you've also spoken to surrogates, egg donors, invisible domestic labor, and a whole gamut of people. Were there initial anxieties on how you would make a connection with these people so that they let you into their world and open up? Language was also a different parameter, isn't it? You would have had a translator or an interpreter. But tell me about the process of how, as a creator, you navigate these areas.
So, I mean, I think one of the things about the way that I have chosen to make films is that I don't really work to build a connection beforehand. Because I think, you know, eventually all documentary, all research work, etc., is in danger of being very extractive. And the camera is a very powerful thing. I feel everybody who wants to make a documentary, the first thing that they should do is ask somebody to interview them. Because then you understand the power dynamic there is in somebody putting the camera on you and asking you a question, and add to that the dimensions of class, caste, urban versus non-urban spaces. You know, so all of that is always operating, and I think you have to be very aware of that without becoming artificial in the process. So one of the things that I don't do, which is the convention in documentary, is form intimacies with my subjects beforehand. But I feel they should not trust me. Filmmakers are untrustworthy people. They are always thinking about their film. So you may say, oh, I'm doing it for, I don't say that I'm doing it for the good of society, but that's often a claim that documentarians make. But that doesn't mean everything you do is good, even if you want to be good, right? So I think, first of all, I approach it in that different way. And I mean, I think for me, forming a connection with anybody, what does it mean? Why should it be different because it's somebody in a film or somebody from a space that I'm not that familiar with? So the way you form a connection with any stranger is really how I seek to form that connection. I think you have to have a certain sense of curiosity about other people. And for me, it was very important that I communicate those women as people and not as examples of their professions, so that I don't want anyone to see them as a type or as an example. They are all unique individuals. And they are also actually experts, not only on their lives, but through years of being in the difficulties that they are, and through years of resilience of living their life like any one of us, actually have developed a political understanding and articulation from which we all have a lot to learn. So I think I wasn't so anxious about those things, but language was, for me, tough because I've generally made films in Bombay. Like, a lot of my films have actually been made in Bombay, and I've shot in Meerut once for one film in Delhi, so I've always known the language. In Working Girls, like the first place I shot was Madurai and Tamil for a North Indian. Like, after 1.5 years, I could make out 2 words. Like, when people would be speaking, I'm like, but where is the word start? Where is the word? Which is the word? And so that was tough for me. I found it, like, usually, even when you don't know the language, just by somehow intently becoming absorbed and following the cadence, you get a sense of what the person is saying. But Tamil was very hard for me, yeah. So there I struggled, and till the end of the film, I was continuously discovering new things in the material, because a different person would say, no, she's saying this, but actually it means this. So, you know, and because documentary is the process of going through the material and learning meaning, this was, for me, the hardest thing. The other languages, like, you know, I'm quarter Bengali, and I famously do say that I hate Bengalis, and oh God, don't start speaking to me in Bengali, etc. But by the end of the film edit, I was like, oh, I understand Bengali completely. Can't you make out she's saying this? The thing that where I didn't have any translator was actually the Asha workers in Trivandrum, because I read about the strike and I thought, let me just go, and I just took an iPhone and I went. And then I just sat in the rally, but I don't know, I was kind of in love with everybody in the film. To be very honest, one of my friends watched the film and said the most interesting thing about the film is watching Paromita try not to let her love get in the way of her work, right? But I was so entranced by all the people I met. Somehow when you're in love with the person, you kind of understand what they're saying, I would say. So in the Malayalam part, I used to think that I know what they're saying. Sometimes I was totally wrong. But I kind of got it. I don't know how else to put it. Yeah. with the other languages like Bangla and Marathi, they are a little closer, a little familiar, so I used to get by, manage. Yeah, I mean, I think those were genuine challenges of the filmmaking. And I think the interesting thing that it did for me, because my way of filmmaking is very also that I am very, very present in the way of speaking and whatever, I had to find a new way of, this was the first time making a film with people from very, very distinctly different class background, from very different regional backgrounds. So it was a challenge to me, and I made a film after 14 years, to find a new methodology. So I guess I was learning it as I was doing it, and yeah, it is exciting, but it's exhausting. And in conclusion, I would like to say documentary filmmaking is a young people's medium, I realized. And I'm also realized I'm not young, though I like to pretend I am.
Was filming with an iPhone just a one-off thing that you did for this film? Otherwise, how big is your crew?
No, I only shot that part with an
Okay.
iPhone. Yeah, everything else was shot with a, I mean, technology has changed a lot, right, in 14 years. So I kind of hate the new digital cameras with the changeable lenses. I don't feel they're made for documentary. I feel they are made because people think that we should also look like feature films, which is like this kind of always blocking shot and all. I think it's imposing a very homogeneous cinematic language. So I loved the old digital video cameras. Usko utha ke kabhi kahin bhi ghus jao, kahin bhi chale jao. It was like a very, it's a dancer's medium, the small camera. These cameras are a kind of guyish medium, if I can say that, you know, always like imposing this notion of a good-looking frame. And if there's a pre-existing notion of a good-looking frame, then how are you going to find a new beauty, you know? And the old video cameras, I think, really allowed you to do that. So I think I changed 4 cameras in the film. Nahin, ye chhodte hain. Okay, let's shoot with the camcorder now. Oh no, the colors were better in that. So we shot with a number of different cameras, but all digital cameras on 4K, except for this one sequence on iPhone, yeah.
Tanuja, tell us about the shift that you had to do in terms of the technicalities and the number of crew members, because you came from the Hindi cinema, you know, which is much larger.
And don't forget OTT. That's where the big crews are. For my show Hush Hush, it was 200 people.
What?
Yes.
Oh my God.
I mean, it was too much. I was just like, how am I going to handle this? Also, we had a lot of actors and stars and things like that. And for the documentary I'm at present shooting, there were 3. Yeah. So it is so mobile. You can just go anywhere, and you need to. People shouldn't be. The whole charm of documentary is that they forget that there's a camera. You know. So I think that technology, in the sense that the small cameras that have come recently are actually really useful. Because they are, you know, more invisible. Like the big film cameras, when I started out, almost 30 years ago, cameras were big, really big. Now they've become small and tiny, and depending on the lens and all that, and depending on the body, it's small. Your sound, your mics are good, because sound, you can't do dubbing in documentary. So the mics are good, and you know, you just need a little bit of equipment, get there. See, documentary, you have to make it cheaply. Unless, you know, I don't know, you have a big grant from some, you know, European Commission or something, or Sundance or something. But otherwise, you have to make it cheaply. It's like, you know, I don't know when don't even think I'm going to get any money. But I just think for me, what I receive in making that and telling that story is just, I feel like, and which is my main aim as a filmmaker, is to tell stories that have some value, not just now, many years from now. They're an archive of our times, you know. And also, for me personally, they speak of some kind of justice. They ask for justice, demand justice and equality. That one can freely do in documentary. It's very liberating, because it doesn't have a producer breathing down on you and saying that, you know, I mean, there is a producer, but, you know, the stakes are low. And the result is big. And so I think that because there is that, you feel there's less of a risk. You just fly, because you go in every direction. You try out, you shoot so much. Then you take so long to edit, you know, nice and long. You find the story at the time of editing, actually. So it's that I'm very happy with technology. I only just feel the digital cameras are too sharp. They're like so sharp and they don't capture that little sort of blurred beauty that we actually see in real life, you know. So I do have but then, you know, there's also post-production, which of course, if you got the money, then it's expensive. You can achieve that little bit of blurred and little bit of cinematic feel. In post-production and, you know, all with the machinery. So that's also technology. I mean, you know, it's good, and at the same time, it's also, it makes you want something which maybe your film doesn't really require or need. But it also allows you to change shots, to make them better, to put a cloud where there wasn't one. I'm just shocked. I'm like, oh my God, you can do so much. So yeah, so it's interesting because documentary is supposed to be all about reality, but you do enhance reality in post-production. And I'm not quite sure what I feel about it as yet. I'm enjoying it right now.
Is it also very personally gratifying when these stories are out and then, you know, both of you have traveled extensively to screen your films, right? Now, these are very real stories and, you know, when you talk about matrimonial fraud or even about two elderly women and how they go about their lives, it's very personal. And similarly for you, you've screened the film to women who've been part of the film as well and to the general audience, right? What are the kind of different reactions that you've encountered? Does it range from just a relatability to a little more awareness and empathy? Can you just throw light on that?
I mean, for wedding.com, it was amazing to me how many women came ahead and said that this has happened to me and I'm so happy you made this and oh, I didn't know this existed. I'm going to be careful from now on. So it was extremely gratifying for me and at the same time very heartbreaking. When I was making this film, so we had 5 women who had undergone, who had gone through matrimonial fraud and experienced it and had their hearts broken and lost a lot of money. There was, you know, my producers would often say that people watching will think, oh, they're so foolish. How could they fall for this? And I was very clear. I said, I don't consider them foolish. So I don't care how they're perceived. I think they're heroes for speaking to me, you know. So I'm standing with them, holding their hands. And I'm saying that frame your question differently. Your question should be, how could the man do this? Not that how could she fall for it.
Victim blaming.
Yes, all the time. And that's what these women, first they get their hearts broken, they lose a lot of money, and then they're made to feel like fools. It's just completely, it just shows you what our culture is, how highly they value what women feel and what women go through. First you put the pressure of marriage on women, you must get married, and then when they feel like, okay, this man might be the right one for me because obviously the scammer is posing to be this wonderful, caring, liberal, unjudgmental, loving person. And then when they're in trouble, you feel like you're helping someone you're going to be spending your life with. So why not give them some money that they need? How is that wrong, I ask. My question is, how is that foolish? Is it foolish to love? It's wrong to scam women. And they do this because they have money, not because they're foolish, you know. So I was extremely happy that I got to make this, first of all. And then I was shocked to know that, of course, most of the time, there's nobody gets caught or sent to jail. It's a bailable offense. Even in my documentary, there was one scammer who scammed a young woman of 27. He was arrested and put behind bars. It's a bailable offense. He was out in 6 months. And then on my show, there was a second woman he scammed again, you know. So they keep coming out and doing the same thing, you know. There's no accountability. We don't care enough. It's that. And then, of course, we don't have the equipment, cybercrime. Maybe the person scamming is somewhere abroad, so there's no sort of way of dealing with countries and diplomacy and policy to get to stop this. But we've got to stop it. It's got to stop. It's a crime. Straightforwardly a crime. So yeah, I was hoping to make a second season, but let's see if Amazon wants to do it. It's always about which shows make the money, right? But this show did well, so fingers crossed.
Paromita, tell me about your screenings itself. You know, you screened the film to ASHA workers who were part of the film, and you've also screened the film to general audiences like all of us. What were the different reactions that you had among the people who saw it? For the ASHA workers, was it like, okay, we are seeing ourselves on screen, and someone has taken the trouble to put our lives on screen? And for the general audience, is it about let's become a little more empathetic, at least towards the invisible labor?
See, if the audience is going to say, let me be a little empathetic to invisible labor, I don't want them to come for the film. Okay. Because I feel it's a very condescending attitude, you know. The documentary, well, all art, it exists for the purpose of connection, not for relatability. It is to connect us to each other. And connection is a very human thing. It's also a very political thing. So my effort in any film I make is to disallow familiar forms of connection, like, oh, this is so terrible, I feel so bad for this person, or wow, she's so heroic, you know, which is the familiar mode in which you're supposed to see something. But I think that, like, all art should, at some very visceral level, connect you to the other person's humanity, and therefore to your own humanity. So we are all invested in that process. It is not that somebody's better off and somebody's worse off, but we are all involved in the same, we all living in the same system. That system which dehumanizes the person who's suffering is actually dehumanizing you who is implicated in the suffering, right? So we seek to be humanized again through the process of watching a film. That said, you know, I mean, I think like for this film, it was interesting to watch it with the ASHA workers, because I told, when I was going for the screening, I said, yeah, don't make this 2 hours film, they'll get so bored, and let's just show them the parts that they are in. And they're like, no, we want to watch the whole film. And you know, there is like all these different languages, and they're mostly Malayalam-speaking women. So I was pretty amazed. They watched the whole film, but they come very late in the film. So definitely at the like, you know, in the last 40 minutes, that mark, they were like, "Acha, ye picture to chalti ja rahi hai. Hum kab aane wale hain?" So, and it was afternoon. They were tired, whatever. So like Rosamma, the secretary of the union, she was sitting next to me, and then she was like, she fell asleep. I was like, yeah, I don't blame her, frankly, but, and then, you know, when the ASHA workers part starts, it comes as a song. They're singing a song, and you hear the song first. So when the song started in the background, suddenly her eyes fluttered open, and then she saw Trivandrum, and she became like that, and she started clapping, and they all clapped, and they were singing, and I think for me, it's been like, I've had about 25, 26 screenings so far, and that's like watching 25 movies of people, because I keep looking at the audience's face. And of course, the ASHA workers screening was special. It was one of my most exceptional screenings, because at the end of the screening, they were like, shall we have a Q&A? And I'm like, I don't think we want to, because it's just nice to be here together. And they went up on stage, and they want to take a picture. So they said, okay, come on, working girls, assemble. And that was amazing. And I also had a screening with the Sex Workers Collective in Pune. And there again, this idea that there's a song at the end of the film, and there's a line that says, "Office wali madam zara khisak udhar, tere maafik main bhi hu ek working girl." And they were like, yeah, office wali madam, etc. So, you know, when you see people make it their own, it's great. Like, there is no feeling like that feeling, of course. And at the end, one of the ASHA workers came, she's telling me something at length in Malayalam, and as I already said, I've become very good at looking like I understand and thinking that I understand, but actually don't know what anybody's saying. But at the end of it, she just said, proud of you. No. And I don't know if she meant to say, I'm proud of you, or I'm proud of this, or I'm just proud. But you know, the eyes shining, the hugs that I received, I'm very, very grateful for that. So that's one type of screening. But for me, the other screenings also with people who are not part of the film or those worlds have been very moving. Because one thing that, you know, it's a long film, right? And because I'm a girl, I keep saying it's a very long film. I never known any man to say. All my bearded filmmaker friends who make very long films, and never they'll say ki bahut lambi picture hai. I'll be like, it's 2 hours, huh? It's 2 hours, if you, just telling you. Or I'll make a joke, I'll say, please pee before you see the film, because I'm apologizing for taking up that much time, and I have to get over it, but it's tough. But you know, I thought like, especially so many colleges, younger people never took their phones out. They were absorbed, they were moved. Like their whole bodies were open. And I feel that's the best thing a film can do. So when I was making the film, I thought the only thing I want to achieve in this film is a feeling of spending time with people and an experience of solidarity, because we don't remember now what it is to experience solidarity. And if people can have that experience, who knows what it will lead to. So far, that is how it has felt. I'll do my first screenings outside the country next month, so now we'll see what happens there. Like, does it work in the same way or not? Yeah.
I think that's lovely. I just want to add one thing. My example is not nearly as good as yours, but for Kareeb Single, in the Bhutanese, the Sikkimese theatre, they have small, very beautiful, lovely theatres in Gangtok and places. It was when the first shot of Sikkim would come is when they would all clap. I thought that was lovely because they said, oh, this is our place, you know.
But I want to say one thing, you know, I mean, in all the films that I've made, but I made a television series long ago called Connected Hum Tum, which was about 5 women at a kind of crossroads, and they filmed their own lives. Like, we gave them each a camera. They filmed their own lives. It was for ZTV. Now, for choosing the women in that series, we must have interviewed like 150 women. And whether it were each of those women, they were much older, very educated, not at all educated, struggling, confused, lost, young. It's every kind of woman we interviewed. The one thing that I have found in common amongst all those women, amongst the people that I meet while making films, the women that I've met, that feeling, the world has not seen what I am. The world does not know what I am. And I want to be seen as I am, you know. It's a very powerful desire in all kinds of women that you meet. And I think it's because the world does not have an apparatus somehow for seeing women as people. They're continuously seeing women only as women, interchangeable with each other, you know, like, and I say also, like, when you have panels on women and film, the feeling that one woman filmmaker or another woman filmmaker is, after all, only a woman filmmaker. Like, the woman part is important. The filmmaker she is not important. The fact that she's a woman is important. So even when you're celebrating women, you're in a way making sure they stay in a box. And the box looks a bit better than the box that maybe patriarchy gave them. But it is a form of patriarchy, this celebration of women thing also. So the desire to break out of all of that and to just be yourself, like even when you were talking about your aunts, that when you're older and you're done with all of that, and then you can be lazy and wear a very loose salwar and eat too much or do whatever you like, be all of you, you know. That I think it does not afford it easily to women by the world, yeah.
I'm going to squeeze in one last question before we throw open the questions. You know, in my interaction in Hyderabad with a lot of Telugu filmmakers, I've found this discussion on a repeated basis. People say that things have been better in the last few years with a few more women stepping in to take up different, work capacities. Either they're assistant directors, associate directors, or in the costume production department, some even film cinematographers. And there's a general consensus that when there are a few more department heads who are women, it makes the work atmosphere a little more, conducive for better exchange of ideas. Since both of you have had about 3+ decades of working, can you give us a little insight about your own teams? And I remember that you mentioned in an interview that you try to see that there are about 30% of women in your teams. Of course, everything is merit-driven, but how does the working atmosphere shift when there are a few representatives like that?
In wedding.com, I had 35%, and I was very happy about that, but it's still too little. It should be 50% or more. When I first started out, there would just be like maybe a couple, 2-3 girls, young girls. I was young myself, running around, but all just all men otherwise. And now it's really nice to see. And of course, it was very difficult. Women did not have a proper bathroom, depending on where you shoot. And then they have to get home late at night. So it was difficult, it wasn't easy. We found ways to still do it. Now I do see a lot of women on I make sure that a lot of women on my set. On other sets also, I do see a lot of young girls and HODs, heads of departments. But again, it's not enough. It needs to be much, much more. And it's not as if, the atmosphere feels different. It's not, I wouldn't make a generalization that it's overall much, much better or more efficient. But you do feel a sense of newness, and you feel a sense of that your idea or what you're trying to say will be heard first. even if it's rejected or whatever. It'll be, people will listen. I find women to be extremely hardworking. You know, that's half the thing, more than half the thing. Very hardworking, very meticulous, will just do anything that is needed, anything that is required. Whereas men will tend to think that they already know what this thing is about. Yeah, we've been here before. We know what this shit is about, you know. So I enjoy working with women. I try to make sure there are many. But having said that, I have to say, and Amazon Prime did a study on this some years ago, that the numbers are dismally low in the film industry. Less than 10% women working in most departments. So it hasn't changed as much as you'd like to think it would. I used to say this 30 years ago, and I've been doing the same buck since then, and it's hardly grown the number of female directors. Small number. So there is a problem.
I mean, documentary, of course, has a lot of female directors, and it's mostly technical crew that tend to be not women, although that is also changing. So I've worked in crews that are all women. I've worked in mixed crews. I mean, I think in an all-women crew, there is something different, softer maybe, I don't know. Not really, actually. Filmmaking is hard. Filmmaking is under-resourced, so there's always tension and fighting and all of that. I think people who are making films really, really care about what they're doing, so they also fight very badly. Like, there's a lot of fighting. And so I'm going to talk about whether it's better to fight with girls or boys. And I think it's better to fight with girls because you really properly fight, you know. Whereas men want to fight to say that they are right. And like I have worked, so I think, especially as you grow older, I feel also as a woman, age, see when you're young, you're a bit more open, everybody's, even your male colleagues are younger sometimes, so there's a certain softness. I don't think Indian men age well. Sorry, I mean, it's a very broad, sweeping statement to make, but their severe midlife crisis can be quite traumatic for, whereas women age pretty well. I mean, you know, I find that you're talking to middle-aged women, they've been through a bunch of things, personally, professionally, politically. It's very interesting, the way they see the world. You're always learning from your friends who are middle-aged. And from young women also, you're always, because there is something urgent that they wish to express, so you're always learning something. So with men, there are so many masks now, their own struggle of masks. Nowadays, there's this thing that we are all supposed to be worried about the male loneliness epidemic. Please, like, apna dekho bhaiya. Hum log apna kar rahe hain, tum apna karo. Why should I start worrying about your loneliness? So this thing, you know, better all the time trying to repurpose the energy of the space to attend to their issues. And then being a technical head gives them that other extra mask that I'm saying it for the work, but actually they are saying it for their ego. So yes, this is, and I think as a result of all of that conditioning of men, you know, which is that the whole world is normalized. It's masculine, but it's normalized. That they don't actually, therefore, have very few men who have the lightness and self-reflexivity that brings something sprightly to the working space. No? So that sense of equality, which is very important in the arts, to be able to speak to each other freely, openly, vulnerably, make a mistake and laugh at it. I think the Indian gents are not getting that conditioning properly, so yes.
I would say tenderness. There's just not enough tenderness.
And fun. Like you should, there should be a sense of fun, and that fun comes from that not carrying an idea of masculinity with you all the time, which is about power and which is about knowing everything and being authoritative. And also like very bad listeners. And can you imagine me? Like I'm so talkative that if you put me with a bad listener, it's like a nuclear situation. So no, but they are poor listeners. And even in other contexts where you work, like they have a lot of orthodoxy. Men are very orthodox because they have not been taught to question their own condition, right? So they are continuously saying, "Aisa hona chahiye, aise hota hai." It is not impactful if it doesn't go to scale. If it is not innovative if it doesn't go to scale. Bhai, like you are talking nonsense. But very few people question men. Yeah, those who question are seen as irritating women. You know what's going to be on my tombstone, right?
I think we can take a few questions now. Please put up your hands.
Good morning, Tanuja ji. My question's for you. So you were 30 years back one of the first, I'm assuming I may be wrong, female movie Bollywood directors. So what challenges did you face? What difficulties were there to kind of break that ceiling?
Yeah, when I started, there were, I think, 4 or 5 female directors only. Well, even on my first film set, there was this distributor type who came and said, "Director kidhar hai?" I said, "Director idhar hai." So yeah, you weren't taken seriously, and it's just that I had a wonderful producer, Mr. Mahesh Bhatt, who never was, given to these feelings of a woman can do less and a man can do more. And Pooja Bhatt was my producer as well. So I had a wonderful. I was surrounded by wonderful people. But yes, the exhibitors and the distributors, who are the money people, basically money making, and it's a business for them, were worried, what kind of a film will a woman make. It's usually रोने धोने वाली picture होती है, और तो I've been told to my face, औरतों की picture नहीं चलती, So and my counter is this, that the number of women making films and making female-led films is too small to arrive at any kind of statistic. It's too soon. Make half. Then we'll decide chalti hai ki nahi chalti, So I actually didn't consider problems to be problems. Of course, now I realize in retrospect that it did hurt me and it did affect me. I used to think that, oh no, I don't care what people say and I don't care how they talk to me. But now I realize it did affect me. And there was some amount of shaming that I myself internalized, and I felt that I'm not capable enough. And so you realize that later on. So it is actually much more, one can laugh about it now, but it is quite debilitating. And I do see women around me also feel that. And it's the conditioning, like how she said she's constantly having to say my film is long. I mean, the condition of being a woman, you're already first apologetic, about everything. Ki, acha meri picture, acha kahani sun lijiye, acha, instead of actually realizing that the producer brings in the money, but you're bringing in the gold. Yeah. You have the subject, the story, the hard work that goes behind it. It's time we stop being apologetic, but that also is a statement, because we continue to be that way, continue to be like, feel grateful that one is able to make a film, and while the male directors will strut around and I'm making a film, so now I would like to say, change my position, that I did face difficulties, but earlier on I was too cool to say that,
Oh. I think Marathi-centric films are quite women-centric. In fact, I am from the Moving Images Club, so we're glad to say that we have screened one such film. It's Baipan Bari Deva, celebrating sisterhood.
Nice.
It's a blockbuster.
Oh, nice.
And then I was just recalling the name. So in the process, I saw there several names like Jimma, Anandi Gopal, Stal. I'm sure you know. So it comes as a great respite, I believe, that we do have at least Marathi. I'm not a Maharashtrian, but still.
No, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. My dream is, which I don't think will be fulfilled, but I wrote this in an article that I wrote, that the end credits, when they roll, just name after name after name after name will be female. That would be lovely.
Actually, I'm taking off from both these observations and interventions. It's lovely to hear you, Tanuja and Paromita, and of course your moderation. It's really very nice. It's very self-affirming. My question is Bombay a unique city in the sense that among the few people who have excelled in filmmaking, women who have excelled in filmmaking, many of them happen to be from Bombay. And is there something about that city and the equality that it thrusts on people, men and women, that allows this to happen?
Yeah, I do think Bombay is a different kind of city for many reasons that of course, the mobility that it affords you, exposure to many, many different ways of thinking that are not as height-bound. You know, it's a less feudal city. It has its own, what can I say, hierarchies and its own orthodoxies, perhaps, but it is a city of surprises and unexpected possibilities. And it's definitely a city which has a long history also of anti-caste struggle, of women's education. So there is compared to many other places, and definitely Delhi and even Calcutta, I would say that the experience that women have, that when they speak, people aren't that interested to listen. That experience is much less in Bombay. And I think that is the first reason that you feel more confident to speak whatever you think, right? Yeah.
I absolutely think it makes the biggest difference. I wouldn't leave Bombay for any city in the world, any. It just allows me to, I mean, I'm so happy living there. It just, with all its dirt and smelliness and pollution and population, I love it. It's safe. I feel that I can work for a long, long time from now on. I mean, I plan to keep directing for a long time, and I think that the city will certainly allow me to do that. It's like, you know, tum apna kaam karo, hum apna kaam kar rahe hain. You know? So also they don't interfere so much in your personal life. You know, it's lovely.
There's a young woman at the back.
Speaking about women directors, we had, you would know, Sangeetha garu, we had Vijay Nirmal garu way back, making a whole lot of movies. I'm not even talking about the kind of movies made or the quality or whatever, but someone attempting to do that way back then, a woman director. And then Mahanati Savitri garu attempted to do a film with an all-women crew. So it did happen in the Telugu industry as well. And now we have that young lady who made that Maya Bazaar on sale. You have to help me with the name. Kiran Mai? Yeah. So, yeah, we are not far behind.
There's a young woman at the back who wanted to ask a question for a long time with the fringe, so maybe. Yeah, she had her hand up from the beginning. Yeah.
So I'll roll 3 questions into one, and it's for both of you. So how do you decide on the subject on which you're going to make a movie? What is the process you follow? And what is your suggestion for young women to get into the field? Since there's a dearth of women, and maybe many of us are interested in getting in, but we just don't know how to go about it.
I'll just answer the last one first. Then you take over the other two. You know, Alankrita Srivastav, the director, she reminded me, I met her a couple years ago at some event. She reminded me that many years ago, she just had sent me an email and said that, you know, I want to direct, I'm at present a journalist, I want to make films. What do I do? I said, just come and make them. Just come to Bombay and just do it. Just do it. So I always tell women the same thing, that, you know, don't wait for anybody to give you permission or to help you or to support you. Just come and do it if possible, of course. Come and join, and actually now it's a better time than when I started out, because it was really difficult then. But now there's, you know, you get paid a little bit more, you do well. So I just say that, you know, just do it. Even if it's not in Bombay, wherever you want to live, make movies with your phone if you want.
Your question requires a very long answer. I'll try to answer it briefly because we're very out of time, I know. I mean, I think for me, if there's a question that I wish to have answered for myself, if I become curious, why is this thing happening? Then the film becomes a way of discovering that, and that propels actually the movement forward.
Thank you all. That's all time we have. Thank you so much, Paromita, Tanuja, and Sangeetha, for such an engaging conversation. I see, you know, there is a lot of work that needs to be done, you know, for women in cinema. Thank you so much.